What's going on, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy. Welcome to another awesome episode of the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. Hey, before we begin, if you are in the hunt for passing the FE exam, go check out a resource we just created. If you go to civilengineeringacademy.com/bestFE resources, you can grab our free guide I created. I helped you scour the internet to find the best resources for the FE and put that in a guide for you. So go check that out, civilengineeringacademy.com/bestFE resources, and fill out your info and go grab it. Today we have a special guest. His name is Scott Denney, and Scott and I actually had a couple classes together in school. He actually worked with my brother, so we have a little bit of history there, which is kind of fun. But Scott works in a very interesting industry now, something I think is kind of a rising technology, and I think it's fun to talk about it. I'd probably want to do more about it in the future, or talk more about it in the future, so it'd be something interesting for everyone. Anyway, let's talk about Scott. Scott, he's got his bachelor's in civil engineering from the University of Utah. He earned his MBA from ASU, and then he got his license, his PE license in a few states, but he is here in Utah. So he's worked in the construction industry for 15 years, working everything from design, estimating, sales, project management, and now 3D concrete printing. So he currently works as a general manager for a company called PICUS Concrete. It's a 3D concrete printing division, and it's pretty sweet. This is a kind of a new technology and something fun we talk about. So it's going to be a great episode, and I think you will enjoy it, and we'll get right to it coming right up. All right, welcome. We got Scott with us today. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thanks, good to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a good time. I know you've told me a little bit about yourself, but a lot of times our listeners like to know how you got into engineering and like what you currently do. So could you give us a brief background to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess engineering was always kind of a thing for me. Even when I was a kid, I loved building and always working out in the garage, and so it just kind of transitioned. I originally thought that architecture is where I wanted to go, but I quickly learned I did not have the artistic capabilities for that. And so engineering was a good fit. And so I did engineering while I was in engineering school. I also learned something else about myself that maybe like the typical engineering career may not have been exactly what I was looking for. So construction, I found, was a perfect fit for me. And so being out on the job sites, working with the guys, just kind of the dynamic conditions of the job site and construction projects was a lot of fun. So I did that for probably 13 or 14 years. And then over the course of this last year, I transitioned into a new division that we've been working on. And it's 3D concrete printing.
Excellent. So yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. Now, I guess everyone should know that we had a little run-in in school together, right? We had a few little things together. Yeah, and then absolutely. On top of that, you also know my brother, Mark.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Mark's a great guy.
What's the story there?
He promised me not to share any dirt, and so I will honor that promise. No, Mark doesn't have any dirt. He's an awesome guy, and we worked together for, it was probably, I want to say I was in Salt Lake, I don't know, 4 or 5 years directly with him, and then I got transferred up to Seattle. Okay. And I still kept in contact with him. And then when I came back, he was one of the first people that I called, just to get back connected. So yeah, I've had a 15-year relationship with Mark. He's a good guy. Great guy.
That's great. So, so that's just some fun background story there. But, so now you're working for a company called PICUS, and you're doing this awesome concrete 3D printing. So like, what's a typical day for you now? Like how does that work? People order stuff. What are we doing?
So we're still in, I'd say, our startup phase, right? We've had the printer; it was installed in October, November timeframe, and then since then, there's been a lot of debugging and kind of working out the kinks. But we're finally up and running. We're into production. So I don't know that there's a typical day right now, but we are we're exploring the different market segments where this can be applied. And so there's a lot of kind of reaching out to people, trying different things, looking at different applications, products. So there's a lot of that, but there's also a lot of boots on the ground type stuff. So we're busy printing, obviously, and that's a big operation. It requires a decent amount of manpower, and we've only got 4 people right now that are part of the operation. So
Wow.
so there's everybody, it's all hands on deck. So
What market or what areas do you want to go in, do you think, with this technology? Is it just
um
anything and everything, or is it like you're looking at specific things?
we're really trying to stay open to whatever possibilities are out there. I think the end game would be probably the structural market. The architectural and structural market is
Okay.
where we'd like to be. I think that's going to take quite a bit of time for the governing bodies to kind of catch up with the capabilities of the technology. So while we're kind of pushing that, we're also looking at consumer goods. I mean, anything from like flower pots, to
Oh
fire
yeah.
pits, to um, architectural features. Landscape architecture seems to be a really good
So
segue, I guess.
it sounds like you've come full circle then, back to architecture. Just
Uh,
kidding.
a little bit.
Uh,
The organic shapes that we can print, they blend in really well with a landscape environment, right? So
that's
I think
true.
it's got a pretty strong appeal with the landscape architecture community.
Wow. I think it's just a neat technology. I know 3D printers are something that's been around for a few years, but the application of using them just continues to grow. So
Yeah,
personally, this is the first time I've ever heard it being used in a kind of a concrete type application. So
yeah,
that's actually really cool idea.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's when we first, I'll be honest, like when we first got into it, I was like, oh, this is pie in the sky. This is not real. This is stuff that maybe they're doing at a university or whatever. But it was an interesting experience, just kind of seeing what was out there and the capabilities that were out there, and really coming to realize that, hey, this is legit. Like it's time to produce. Like
well, I
so.
told you one day I got to get in there. We'll do a little video and share it with everybody. I think it'd be a really cool thing to share with people.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's fun.
what I want to ask if there's, because a lot of times in our community we get a lot of rising engineers growing, starting engineering, but
Yeah.
looking back in your own career and where you're at now, do you have any advice or tips or tools that would help a growing engineer?
You know, I've uh, I've had an interesting experience over the course of the last year, 2 years, as I've been talking to engineers about this technology and how to apply it.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing that I could share is to think outside the box, because you'll approach some of these guys and they'll be like, well, I can't find that in my code book, right? Like I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And then you'll approach another guy and he's like, oh, well, maybe if we look at it like a masonry type application, we could apply this code to it. We could make it work. And
Hmm.
and so being able to think outside the box is huge. And I think not only in my specific situation, but in a lot of other situations where, um, okay, there isn't a specific code provision for this. What do we do? You've got to be creative, and you've got to find a solution that works. And so, yeah, being able to think outside the box is a big deal. It's a
That's
good
great.
skill to have.
I think that's a great skill, and I think that's great for any engineer to hear, because a lot of times, you get caught up in school and how it's taught and in the books that you need to use, and then when you get out in real life, you're kind of
Yeah.
slapped in the face with reality, and
Yeah,
sometimes it doesn't match a textbook. So
absolutely.
good
Yeah, for sure.
advice. What about what about a lesson that you've learned through a mistake, or anything that you've seen at a distance, maybe a mistake that was made? What's a lot of times we learn when we fail. So if there's any of those pieces of advice, we love to hear those too.
Yeah. So I'm thinking back on a project. It was the Matthew Knight Arena for the University of Oregon. So this is back in my concrete formwork days,
Okay.
and it was an extremely technical formwork project, and we had to basically shore these raker beams that were 60 feet in the air
Wow.
and on a very aggressive slope. And so two conditions that are pretty tough to handle sometimes, especially with the equipment that you may be using. Um, so I was receiving a lot of pressure from the job site to thin back some of the specifications that I'd provided on the formwork, and I was pretty anxious about it. I didn't feel comfortable with it, and and we but I conceded. I said, okay, you're right, I'm being too
Fine.
conservative, and I conceded, even though I didn't feel 100% comfortable with it. And we had some movement in some of the rakers that caused some major issues. Luckily, like they stayed within tolerance and it wasn't anything substantial, but just yeah.
Enough to make you uncomfortable
Oh
and
yeah.
wish you didn't
Anything.
do that.
Absolutely. Anytime anything's moving 60 feet in the air and you're talking thousands and thousands of pounds, that's not a good scenario.
uh,
So
that's scary.
it is luck, and we'll call it luck, right? Like nothing happened. It wasn't quality was still okay. We didn't have to rip anything out, but yeah, valuable lesson. Don't concede. If you know if you know where things need to be, yeah,
Yeah, that's a
don't push
great
those limits.
advice. So I think a lot of times, a lot of times in engineering, there's some pressure to, like you said, reduce what your tolerances are, or, make it cheaper, shorter, quicker, things like
Yeah,
that. And at the end of the day, you have to live with what you design. So maybe, like you said, trust, how you're feeling. Luckily, that worked out for you.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I guess that was a good lesson learned.
yeah.
Um, what's been your favorite project? If we're speaking of projects, has there been a favorite that you've worked on? Is the stuff you're doing now a favorite? Like what's been your
Um,
favorite?
I yeah, there's been a lot of fun projects. Probably, yeah, this 3D printing, getting this up and going has probably been one of my favorites. So we just we started 2 years ago researching. We went over to Europe and did kind of a tour of Europe and visited a bunch of companies that were doing 3D printing, and we came in contact with Sika, the company that we're partnered up with, and it was kind of game on from there. So we worked with them developing the specifications for the printer as far as the size and the other capabilities that we needed out of it. We Once we had the printer specifications nailed down, then we had to go to work on building a warehouse to house the printer. So we were thinking about the operations and what we were going to need in this warehouse, and designing that functionality into the warehouse. And we kind of got caught off guard because the property that we were going to build the warehouse on, there's some issues with the land and property property lines and that. And so we were scrambling. So in a time period of starting in April, we purchased the land, we started design on the building, and had permit by the middle of June. And we broke ground immediately, and then we had the structure substantially complete by October, which was a pretty tight time frame.
Man.
And so it was pretty intense, but it's been very satisfying, kind of seeing it all come together, and then now having the operations just kind of taken off, and some really cool opportunities coming through the door. It's been a lot of fun.
Wow, that's crazy. I think as this grows, obviously, competition comes around, but it sounds like you got a good partner. Sounds like you're moving this thing forward quickly, and I think it's exciting. I'd be interested to see what products you're making and working with people on.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something you're interested in today. I'd like to ask you a couple quick questions, some short answers, but what's an obstacle that you faced in becoming a civil engineer, whether that was school or FE, PE, or career boss, something like that? But what are some obstacles you faced?
The first one that comes to mind is, I guess, just complying with the requirements, the state requirements. So I was maybe a little impatient in getting licensed. I was going to school and working full time, and so I complying with the state requirements for the professional experience and having your degree. There's a little bit of a discrepancy about if I was complying with those requirements, and so I had to appeal the board, and it was actually up in Washington that I was doing this, and it was a little bit of a process. I had to plead my case, and at the end of the day, they gave me my license, which was awesome, and let me take the exam. And so,
was this for the PE or was this for the SE? What was this for?
It was for the PE.
Okay. Yeah, getting licensed in other states sometimes can be a hassle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely an obstacle.
Yeah.
That's good advice too. A lot of engineers are working in a lot of different states. So do you have is there any tips there to help others when they're getting licensed in other states?
The reciprocity helps, right? And so if you can, I'm only licensed in Utah right now, and that's where I live. And so I haven't had to keep up with it, but yeah, there's definitely resources out there, and I'm trying to remember. I'm drawing a blank on
it's all good.
What I used, but
I believe NCES has kind of a place where you can store your licenses and try to get reciprocity in other states. They try to help you with that, but I do know it's kind of a pain. Anyway. So good luck to engineers getting licenses in lots of states.
Absolutely. Yep.
How about this? What's the best advice you've ever received, or good advice in general?
I think I'll go back to maybe using your engineering judgment. Again, like you said, the real world slaps you in the face, right? Like you're not going to be able to find a code for every situation to kind of spell out how you need to approach it and what you need to do. And so engineering judgment, seeing the intent of the code and safely working within that intent, I think is a huge valuable skill that can solve a lot of problems and move things forward.
Perfect. I like it. How about this? What's a personal habit that you think has contributed to your success as an engineer?
I don't know if it's a habit, but maybe just curiosity. So good. Just always looking for maybe the next best thing and looking to stay on top of things. Always I guess it would lend to your continuing education, right? As far as an engineer, things are evolving, and you got to know what's out there. You got to know what's going on so that you can stay in front of it and be prepared for those things that are going to be thrown at you.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. Is there anybody that you look up to or that you follow that, this curiosity has gotten you following somebody or listening to somebody or
yeah,
advice?
absolutely. I've taken an interest in Bill Gates and kind of watching him as he's stepped away from Microsoft and is now using those same skills that he used to build it, just that ginormous empire, and now he's using those skills and those same skills, those same capabilities in a very different way, and it's in more of a philanthropic effort, to help the world, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Do you have any, I guess, going along those lines, is there any books or any resources you'd recommend for engineers?
So books, I would say the CERM is awesome. Like I guess I remember when I was preparing for the exam, like the CERM was kind of my go-to.
Hey,
And
we
then
agree with that. We're an
yeah,
affiliate with them. So if you go
awesome.
to PPI, use our little discount code we made. It's CIVAC, and you get 15% off your book. So
Awesome. That would
go
have been
go
nice.
grab it. I think they changed the name of it though. They still use the
Oh, did they?
acronym. Yeah, they
Okay.
still use the acronym of CERM, but they changed the title. So it's like maybe they need a new one. I don't know what it is. Uh,
Yeah. Huh,
because
I didn't know that.
yeah, they slightly changed the title. The company actually is owned by Kaplan now, so
Oh, okay.
I think they changed things a little bit there. But
Changing
CERM's a
the
good
hands.
one,
Okay.
definitely a good one. If you have any others, let us know.
The only other thing I'd say is like I did a PE review course, and I thought it was yeah, very instrumental, I guess, in helping me get prepared.
Oh, good.
I went into it between those two things. I went into it very like a little nervous. I felt very well prepared, but I was still nervous.
Oh
But
yeah.
I left the exam, and I thought that was 10 times easier than I expected, and
Wow.
it was a great feeling. So
Yeah, that's great advice. If you're studying for the exams, definitely look into a course and get the right resources. Those
yeah,
are definitely what you need to do, and then practicing problems like crazy.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
that's going to set you above.
Yep.
So I guess kind of to wrap things up here, one of the fun questions I like to ask is like, if you had all the resources in the world, what's something you'd like to be a part of or work on as a
Yeah.
civil engineer?
Um, I guess I'll go back to my Bill Gates response, right? Like, I think if you had all the resources and knowledge, like that'd be a way cool application. So like something similar to Engineers Without Borders, going you down and applying that knowledge, your skills into bettering a different part of the world, and bringing those things that we may take for granted, to those same benefits to other people.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I see a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff that donate to like Pencils of Promise and um, where also engineering places where they're drilling wells and finding places for water. I think all of those are, I think that's great stuff. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and end with this. What's a last piece of guidance or even the best way to contact you at PICUS, or where can people reach out to you, Scott?
Probably the easiest ways. I'll just give you my personal email address, which is
Okay.
smdenney DENNEY at gmail.com.
Excellent.
And yeah, if you're interested, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have or whatnot.
That's great. And then what's PICUS's website if people want to check out 3D printing?
So it's picusconcrete.com, and PICUS is PIKUS.
Okay.
And we're working on building out our 3D side, and so that's you may not catch much of that on the website just yet. There's a couple of pictures in that, but
It's
yeah,
coming.
it's coming. Yes.
Can I ask how they came up with the name?
PICUS?
Yeah.
It's actually our owner's last name.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, it sounds original,
I was
but
like,
yeah,
oh man,
it's
that's pretty original. Maybe it has to
yeah.
do something with concrete or printing. No. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
cool,
Sorry.
man.
Hopefully that didn't disappoint you.
That does disappoint. I still like the name. Still
Okay.
good.
Cool.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. I think you provided a lot of value, and I think our audience will really like it. So thanks for joining us.
Okay. No problem. Thanks,
All
Isaac.
right. See you later.
All right. Bye.